Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. A cool breeze swept across the wide meadow outside the familiar schoolhouse, carrying with it the scent of pine and distant wood smoke. Hope Valley had been quiet for months, the streets less busy, the chatter at the cafe subdued. But that quiet was broken the moment the first wagons rolled in, their wheels crunching over the gravel. Trucks followed modern ones, heavy with crates and equipment, and a sleepy little town stirred to life again. Season 13 was no longer a date on a production schedule. It was here, happening before everyone's eyes. It began slowly, almost shyly. A scattering of crew members walked the streets taking measurements, placing marks on the ground where cameras would stand, rolling carts of props into the saloon, and dusting off shelves that had been empty since the final scenes of last season wrapped. Then came the costumes. A pair of long garment racks appeared outside the schoolhouse, dresses and suits swaying in the breeze, rich with color and texture. It was as if history itself had been wheeled out into the open, every stitch and button a whisper from Hope Valley's past. Inside one of the temporary tents set up beside the church, the costume team worked with a quiet intensity. They measured hems, pinned sleeves, and made tiny adjustments with the kind of care only true artisans could muster. It wasn't just about dressing characters, it was about dressing the heart of the story. One deep blue dress, in particular, caught the light like still water on a summer morning. It was destined for Elizabeth, and though Erin Krakow had yet to try it on, you could almost see how it would move with her, how it would frame her expressions in moments of joy or heartache. Then came the first sightings of the cast. Erin arrived, with a smile that seemed to belong as much to her as to Elizabeth. She lingered on the main street, speaking to crew members, slipping into the cafe to greet old friends. Kevin McGarry appeared not long after, his presence drawing a quiet ripple through those gathered nearby. Nathan's uniform hung over one arm, a reminder that while the man himself had been away in story, the Mountie's duty to Hope Valley had never faded. Little Highland Goodrich bounded into the scene, his youthful energy spilling into the stillness, just as Jack Jr. would soon do on screen. The first day of filming began without fanfare, though every Heartie in the area knew it was coming. A soft call of rolling echoed between buildings, and just like that, the world outside faded. In its place was the sound of boots on wooden planks, the creak of swinging saloon doors, the rhythm of dialogue that belonged not to actors but to old friends meeting again after a long absence. It wasn't just a new season, it was a return to something both the cast and audience had been missing. What exactly they were filming that day remained a guarded secret, but hints slipped through. Elizabeth's hair was pinned in a style she'd never worn before, suggesting time had passed. Nathan's uniform looked freshly pressed, as though he had only recently returned to duty in Hope Valley. Jack Jr. clutched a small, worn book in one scene, his lips moving silently, perhaps reciting lines for an upcoming recital. These details, small as they were, began to form a picture in the minds of those watching from afar. Of course, whispers of the story had been circulating since the finale of season 12. The last time we saw Elizabeth and Nathan, they were headed toward Cape Fullerton, leaving Hope Valley with promises but no clear return date. Some feared this meant their stories would shift away from the town, while others suspected it was merely a test both for the characters and for the audience and what it means to call a place home. Now, with both of them standing once again on the dusty street outside Abigail's Café, those fears seemed to settle. They had come back, though perhaps not without changes. If the past is any guide, change in Hope Valley arrives like the seasons. Sometimes it's welcomed new friendships, unexpected romances, a thriving business. Other times it stirs unrest, challenging the values the town holds dear. Already, there were signs this season might deliver both. The arrival of a new stagecoach, bearing unfamiliar faces, hinted at fresh stories. A stranger was seen walking with Henry Gowen near the edge of town, his suit far too fine for a miner or tradesman, his eyes scanning the landscape as though appraising it. Could this be a potential investor, or someone whose intentions are less noble? In another corner of the set, a prop table bore items that seemed out of place: nautical charts, an old compass, and a sealed envelope stamped with a crest no one recognized. Fans who caught a glimpse immediately began speculating. Was someone in Hope Valley about to receive news from afar? Could a connection to the outside world bring opportunity or trouble into their quiet lives? The show had always balanced the comforts of a close-knit community with the unpredictability of the larger world beyond it. And these props suggested that balance might once again be tested. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the camaraderie among the cast was as strong as ever. Between takes, Erin and Kevin laughed together, sometimes joined by Yada Lily Miller's character Allie has grown from a shy young girl into a confident young woman before the viewer's eyes. In one unguarded moment, Hyland ran past the camera holding a slice of pie from the set kitchen, chased by a crew member who pretended to be more upset than he truly was. It was in these little glimpses that you could see why the show had endured. The people telling the story cared for each other as much as their characters did. The energy extended beyond the set, too. Hearties online were quick to share every blurry photo and cryptic caption they could find. A single image of Elizabeth in that blue dress sparked hundreds of theories, some convinced it was her engagement dress, others certain it was for a moment of farewell. When someone noticed Nathan's uniform missing its usual scuffs, a debate broke out over whether that meant he'd been away from the job or simply had time to prepare for a special occasion. The speculation wasn't just noise, it was proof of how deeply invested the audience remained. What's more, the costume designer's own quiet updates sent waves through the fandom. She posted a single photograph of garments lined up in a row, accompanied by the words, "Ready for news stories." That was all it took for comments to flood in. Tears of joy. It feels real again. Hope Valley forever. For many, these behind-the-scenes glimpses were as exciting as the episodes themselves, because they signaled that the heart of the show was still beating strong. But this season wasn't just about returning to familiar rhythms. The writers had promised fresh arcs, and there were hints of that in the casting news. A younger school teacher's assistant was spotted in a rehearsal photo, possibly indicating that Elizabeth's role at the school might shift or expand. A tall, rugged newcomer appeared in the background of a saloon scene, his hat pulled low over his eyes. And in one particularly intriguing setup, Rosemary Coulter was seen examining what looked like architectural blueprints. Was the town preparing for a new building? So, whose dream was about to take shape? There was also the matter of lingering tensions. Last season left several relationships in delicate states: Lucas's departure from town, Henry's ongoing efforts to redeem himself, and the unspoken worries about the coal mining operations. While the production kept tight-lipped about how these threads would weave into the new episodes, the presence of certain props and set pieces hinted at continuation. A familiar gavel was spotted on a desk inside the town hall, suggesting that legal disputes or perhaps political decisions might once again take center stage. As filming days passed, the town seemed to breathe again. The cafe windows glowed warmly at dusk. The church bell rang out across the valley, and the laughter of children spilled from the schoolyard. Even in the quiet moments between takes, there was a sense of purpose in the air. Everyone, from the stars to the newest background extra, knew they were part of something that mattered to people far beyond the set. For those watching from a distance, these updates felt like postcards from an old friend. Each image, each snippet of dialogue overheard by passersby was a reminder that Hope Valley's story was still unfolding. And while the producers were careful to guard the biggest twists, they allowed just enough light to spill through the cracks to keep the audience guessing. By the time the first week of shooting wrapped, the streets looked less like a set and more like the living, breathing town fans remembered. And perhaps that was the real magic of these updates, not just the promise of new drama and romance, but the reassurance that in a world that changes so quickly, there are still places, even fictional ones, where you can come home again. As the sun set behind the mountains on that final day of the week, the cast gathered outside the church. Someone played a gentle tune on a guitar, the notes carrying softly in the cool evening air. There was no script, no cameras rolling, just a group of people who had spent years telling a story together, finding a quiet moment before the whirlwind began again. And somewhere in the hearts of viewers waiting for the season to air, that same warmth flickered to life. Season 13 was on its way. And though no one knew exactly where the story would lead, one thing was certain. The call of the heart had been heard once more, and it was being answered with all the care,